Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Bruno. They say you never truly know someone until you see how they treat you when you're down. For years, I thought I knew my wife perfectly, until a business disaster revealed who she really was beneath the surface. When she told me that if I couldn't handle her sleeping with my friends, I should leave, I realized I'd been married to a stranger who had just been waiting for the right moment to show her true colors. Victoria and I had been married for 9 years before everything fell apart. Those 9 years had been largely peaceful and happy until the bottom dropped out of my professional life and took our marriage down with it. For most of those years, I had considered our relationship to be solid, built on mutual respect and shared goals for the future we were building together. I worked as an independent general contractor, specializing in residential renovations and commercial building projects throughout the metro area. It was demanding work that required managing multiple projects simultaneously, coordinating with subcontractors and suppliers, and maintaining relationships with clients who were often stressed about construction timelines and budgets. But it was also rewarding work that provided a good income and allowed me to build something tangible with my hands and skills. Victoria worked as a receptionist at a medical clinic downtown, a stable job with regular hours and decent benefits that complemented my more unpredictable contractor schedule. Her steady income, although small, provided reliable cash flow during the inevitable gaps between my construction projects, while my higher earning potential during busy periods allowed us to save money and enjoy a comfortable lifestyle. We had established a good rhythm over the years, with Victoria managing most of our household finances and day-to-day logistics, while I focused on building and maintaining the contracting business that provided the majority of our income. She was organized and detail-oriented in ways that complemented my more project-focused approach to life, and I had always appreciated her ability to keep our domestic life running smoothly while I dealt with the complexities of construction work. Our social life during those years had centered around a group of friends we had accumulated through work, neighborhood connections, and shared interests. Many of these friends were other couples who were at similar stages in their lives and careers, building families and establishing themselves professionally while maintaining the kind of social connections that made life richer and more enjoyable. Among our closest friends were several men who had become successful in various fields: finance, real estate development, corporate management, and who had achieved the kind of financial stability that allowed their wives to stay home or work part-time while maintaining upscale lifestyles. These couples lived in larger houses, took expensive vacations, and generally enjoyed the fruits of career success that came with working in high-income professions. I had never been particularly envious of their success because I was proud of my own work and satisfied with the life Victoria and I had built together. My contracting business had grown steadily over the years, and while I might not have earned as much as friends who worked in finance or corporate settings, I enjoyed the independence and creativity that came with running my own business and creating tangible results with my work. Victoria had occasionally made comments about our friends' lifestyles and financial situations, noting their nice houses, expensive cars, and elaborate vacation plans. But these observations had seemed more like casual conversation than serious complaints about our own circumstances, and I had never interpreted them as expressions of dissatisfaction with our life together. That all changed when my business encountered a catastrophic problem that threatened not just my income, but my entire professional future and financial stability. The crisis began with what should have been a commercial renovation project that involved converting an old warehouse into modern office space for a growing technology company. The project had started normally, with proper permits, approved plans, and a comprehensive contract that spelled out the scope of work and payment schedule. My team had been making good progress on the renovation when we discovered that the building's previous owners had failed to disclose significant structural problems that affected the foundation and load-bearing walls. The undisclosed structural issues meant that the renovation work had to be completely redesigned, requiring expensive engineering consultations and substantial additional work to bring the building up to current safety codes. The technology company that had hired me refused to pay for the additional work, claiming that I should have discovered the problems during my initial assessment and included them in my original bid. The dispute escalated quickly when the technology company not only refused to pay for the additional work, but also withheld payment for the work that had already been completed. They claimed that my failure to identify the structural problems constituted professional negligence that had caused delays and additional costs to their business operations. Within weeks, what had started as a disagreement about change orders and additional work had evolved into a full-scale lawsuit. The technology company was suing me for breach of contract, professional negligence, and damages related to their delayed occupancy of the renovated space. They were seeking compensation that far exceeded the total value of our original contract. At the same time, the legal dispute had created a domino effect that threatened my other business relationships and ongoing projects. Word of the lawsuit spread quickly through the relatively small community of contractors, suppliers, and clients that I had built my business around. Other clients became nervous about my ability to complete their projects, and some began looking for alternative contractors to finish work that I had already started. The most devastating blow came when my bonding company, which provided the insurance that guaranteed my ability to complete contracted work, decided to cancel my coverage due to the pending lawsuit. Without bonding, I was unable to bid on new commercial projects or even complete some of the residential work I had already committed to. The combination of the lawsuit, canceled projects, and lost bonding coverage created a financial disaster that threatened everything I had worked to build over years of marriage. I was facing potential bankruptcy, the loss of my business, and debts that could take years to repay, even if I was able to find steady employment working for someone else. When I explained the situation to Victoria, her reaction was immediate and devastating. Instead of the support and partnership I had expected from my wife during the most difficult period of my professional life, she responded with something else that revealed aspects of her character I had never seen before. Victoria's attitude changed almost immediately after she learned about the extent of our financial problems. The woman who had been supportive and understanding when I faced normal business challenges became critical and hostile when confronted with the reality of serious financial hardship. It was as if she had been playing a role for years that she no longer felt obligated to maintain once our comfortable lifestyle was threatened. In the months that followed, as I struggled to manage the lawsuit while trying to salvage what remained of my contracting business, Victoria and I began having money-related arguments that were unlike any conflicts we had experienced during our marriage. They were fundamental challenges to my worth as a husband and provider. Victoria began comparing me unfavorably to our friends who had maintained their successful careers and comfortable lifestyles. She would make pointed comments about how other husbands were able to take care of their families regardless of economic challenges, how real men found ways to maintain their income even during difficult periods, and how disappointed she was that I had allowed our financial situation to deteriorate so dramatically. These comparisons were particularly painful because they focused on men who had never faced the kind of catastrophic business failure that I was dealing with. It's easy to maintain financial stability when you work for established companies with steady paychecks and benefits, but much harder when your independent business faces lawsuits and industry challenges that are largely beyond your control. I hated the constant comparisons to our friends, but I kept my emotions in check because I understood that Victoria was scared and frustrated about our changed circumstances. I told myself that her harsh words were motivated by anxiety about our future rather than genuine contempt for me as a person and a husband. But after a few more months of financial hardship, with no resolution to the lawsuit and no improvement in our business prospects, Victoria got bolder with her disrespect and criticism. She began openly questioning my decisions, my competence, and my commitment to providing for our family. She would tell me that if I couldn't take care of her the way a husband should, then I had no business trying to make decisions about our household or our relationship. This attitude represented a fundamental shift in how Victoria viewed our marriage and my role within it. She had apparently decided that my worth as a husband was entirely tied to my ability to provide financial security, and that my temporary inability to do so meant she no longer owed me basic respect or loyalty as her partner. The situation reached a breaking point on a Tuesday evening when I came home from a frustrating day of meetings with lawyers and creditors to find Victoria on the phone in our living room. She was speaking in a low, intimate tone that immediately raised red flags about the nature of the conversation and the identity of the person she was talking to. When Victoria noticed that I had entered the room, she quickly ended the call without saying goodbye to whoever she had been speaking with. Her furtive behavior and obvious attempt to hide the conversation made it clear that she had been discussing something she didn't want me to know about with someone she didn't want me to identify. I confronted Victoria immediately about the suspicious phone call, asking her who she had been talking to and why she had ended the conversation so abruptly when I came home. Her initial response was evasive and defensive, claiming that she had just been talking to a friend about personal matters that didn't concern me. But when I pressed her for more specific information about which friend she had been talking to and what they had been discussing that required such secrecy, Victoria exploded with anger, telling me that it's none of my business who she was talking to. The revelation that she was having intimate conversations with someone she can't name, conversations that she felt the need to hide from me, was deeply troubling and suggested that whatever was happening had crossed appropriate boundaries. I asked Victoria directly when this pattern of secret conversations had started. Her response was harsh, insulting, and revealed the depths of contempt she had developed for me during our months of financial hardship. Victoria told me that she had been talking to her friend about what a failure I had become as a husband and provider, sharing details about our financial problems and my inability to maintain the lifestyle she felt entitled to as a married woman. She claimed that her friend had been offering her emotional support and practical advice about how to deal with being married to someone who couldn't take care of his responsibilities. The revelation that Victoria had been sharing intimate details of our marriage and financial problems with someone, portraying me as a failure while seeking comfort and validation from probably another man, was a betrayal that went far beyond simple marital discord. She was actively undermining our marriage. I told Victoria that while I might be willing to overlook her disrespectful treatment of me during our financial hardship, I would not tolerate any form of infidelity or inappropriate relationships with other men. I explained that whatever problems we were facing in our marriage needed to be addressed between us, not through conversations with outside parties who might have their own motivations for encouraging discord in our relationship. Victoria's response to my attempt to establish boundaries around her relationships was immediate. Instead of acknowledging that her secret conversations were inappropriate or agreeing to focus on rebuilding our relationship, she escalated the conflict in ways that made reconciliation impossible. She asked me, "Why are you worked up that I spoke to another man?" She asked what I would do if she now slept with any of my friends. I looked at her in shock. She told me that with the way things are going, if I can't handle her sleeping with my friends, then I should leave. She said that my friends were real men who knew how to take care of their families, no matter what challenges they faced, unlike me, who had allowed a business setback to destroy our financial security and lifestyle. Victoria's words were calculated to cause maximum emotional damage, attacking not just my current circumstances, but my fundamental identity as a man and a husband. She was telling me that she had been comparing me to other men and found me so lacking that she felt justified in pursuing relationships with people who met her standards for masculine success and financial stability. The casual way she mentioned sleeping with my friends, as if this was a reasonable response to temporary financial hardship, revealed that Victoria viewed our marriage vows and commitment as conditional on my ability to maintain a certain standard of living. She had apparently decided that my business failures released her from any obligation to remain faithful or supportive during difficult times. But instead of responding with anger or desperation, I looked at Victoria and smiled. After months of trying to save our marriage while managing professional and financial crises, her words had actually provided me with the clarity I needed to move forward. I told her simply, "As you wish." Victoria seemed surprised by my calm acceptance of her ultimatum. She had apparently expected me to fight harder to save our marriage, to beg, or to promise that I would somehow quickly resolve our financial problems and restore the lifestyle she felt entitled to. Instead, she was confronted with a husband who had finally accepted that our marriage was over and was prepared to act on that knowledge. The days that followed were filled with an uncomfortable silence, as we both kept to ourselves while living in the same house and processing the reality that our marriage had effectively ended. Victoria seemed to be waiting for me to change my mind and try to negotiate some kind of reconciliation, while I was quietly making arrangements to formalize the end of our relationship. I spent those days consulting with a divorce attorney and beginning the process of legally dissolving our marriage. Given our financial situation, the divorce would be complicated by questions about debt division and asset allocation, but I was determined to end our marriage as quickly and fairly as possible rather than prolonging a relationship that had become toxic and unsustainable. Some weeks later, Victoria received the divorce papers, and her reaction was immediate panic and outrage. The woman who had told me to leave if I couldn't handle her infidelity was suddenly shocked by the move I made. She accused me of being vindictive, unreasonable, and cruel for taking her harsh words seriously rather than recognizing them as expressions of frustration about our temporary financial difficulties. Victoria claimed that she had said what she said out of frustration and anger about our changed circumstances, not because she actually intended to have affairs or end our marriage. She argued that all couples go through difficult periods and say things they don't mean, and that I was being unfair by treating her ultimatum as a genuine expression of her intentions rather than as an emotional outburst during a stressful time. But Victoria's attempts to minimize her words and reframe them as temporary expressions of frustration were unconvincing because they had been delivered with such calculated cruelty and specificity. She hadn't just threatened to leave or expressed general dissatisfaction with our situation. She had specifically mentioned sleeping with my friends and had characterized them as superior men who were more worthy of her loyalty and affection. The divorce process that followed was messy and contentious, with Victoria alternating between attempts to reconcile and efforts to position herself as the victim of my unreasonable behavior. She claimed that I was abandoning our marriage during a temporary crisis rather than working together to overcome the challenges we were facing. Victoria's attorney argued that her harsh words had been spoken under duress and shouldn't be considered as evidence of her true intentions or character. They claimed that the financial stress of my business failure had created an abnormal situation that had caused her to say things she didn't mean, and that my decision to file for divorce was an overreaction to temporary circumstances. But the documented timeline of Victoria's increasingly disrespectful behavior showed a clear pattern that went far beyond temporary frustration about financial hardship. The divorce proceedings revealed that she had been systematically undermining our marriage while building relationships with other men whom she viewed as superior alternatives to her struggling husband. The legal process took several months to complete, during which time I was simultaneously dealing with the ongoing lawsuit related to my contracting business. Managing both the divorce and the business litigation required enormous amounts of time, energy, and money that I could barely afford, given our precarious financial situation. Those months were the hardest period of my adult life, as I battled legal challenges on multiple fronts while trying to maintain some semblance of normal life and emotional stability. The combination of professional failure, financial hardship, and marital dissolution created stress levels that tested every aspect of my psychological and physical resilience. But approximately 5 months after my divorce was finalized, my business litigation was finally resolved through an out-of-court settlement that allowed me to avoid bankruptcy and begin the process of rebuilding my professional life. The settlement wasn't ideal. I had to accept significantly less money than I felt I was owed, and I had to agree to certain restrictions on my future business activities. But it provided closure and allowed me to move forward without the constant threat of escalating legal costs and potential financial ruin. The resolution of the business lawsuit didn't immediately restore my income or eliminate the debts I had accumulated during the legal battle, but it did provide the stability and predictability necessary to begin planning for the future. I was able to start taking on small construction projects again, slowly rebuilding the professional relationships and reputation that had been damaged during the legal disputes. Things didn't immediately return to normal after both legal cases had been resolved. Rebuilding a contracting business requires time, consistent performance, and gradual restoration of client trust and industry relationships. I had to start over with smaller projects and lower profit margins, while proving that I could complete work on time and within budget despite the challenges I had faced. But I believed that I would stand again, that the combination of my skills, experience, and determination would eventually allow me to rebuild not just my business, but my entire life on a foundation that was stronger and more authentic than what I had lost. The experience of losing everything had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, character, and the difference between fair-weather relationships and genuine partnerships. The divorce from Victoria, painful as it had ultimately freed me from a relationship with someone who viewed marriage as a conditional arrangement based on financial performance rather than as a partnership between equals who support each other through both success and failure. Her willingness to compare me unfavorably to other men and to threaten infidelity when our circumstances became challenging had revealed character flaws that would have eventually destroyed our marriage regardless of my business success. Looking back on Victoria's transformation from supportive wife to contemptuous critic during our financial crisis, I could see that her true character had always been there beneath the surface, waiting for the right circumstances to reveal itself. The woman who had seemed loving and loyal during good times had quickly revealed herself to be someone whose loyalty was purchased with financial security rather than earned through genuine love and commitment. Her comment about my friends being real men who knew how to take care of their families had been particularly revealing because it showed how she measured masculine worth purely in terms of financial success rather than character, integrity, or commitment. She had reduced the complex challenges of marriage and partnership to a simple equation where men were valuable only insofar as they could provide material comfort and social status. The divorce settlement had been relatively straightforward, given our limited assets and significant debts, but it had provided the clean break necessary for both of us to move forward with our separate lives. Today, I'm grateful that Victoria showed her true colors during our time of crisis, rather than continuing to hide her shallow values and conditional loyalty behind a facade of marital commitment. Her harsh words and ultimatum had forced me to confront the reality that our marriage was built on false foundations and that my attempts to save it were ultimately doomed to fail. The woman who had told me that if I couldn't handle her sleeping with my friends, I should leave had done me a favor by making the choice clear and simple. Sometimes, the most painful revelations about people we love are also the most liberating, freeing us from relationships that were never as strong or genuine as we thought they were. When Victoria called my friends real men who knew how to take care of their families, she revealed that she had never understood what real strength and character actually look like. Real men don't abandon their marriages during temporary difficulties, and real women don't shop for replacements when their partners face challenges that require loyalty and support rather than criticism and comparison. The months of hardship that followed had been the most difficult of my life, but they had also been the most educational. I had learned that I was stronger and more resilient than I had ever imagined, and that I could rebuild not just my business, but my entire life, based on authentic values and genuine relationships rather than on the shallow foundations that had supported my marriage to Victoria. Standing again meant more than just financial recovery or professional success. It meant building a life based on real strength, real character, and real love rather than on the illusions and compromises that had characterized my first attempt at marriage. Victoria's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been the beginning of something better and more authentic than what I had lost.